Welcome to Conversations with Cheryl Weston. Tonight, we're going to have our first good news show. We're going to try to have it every Thursday. We will have good news, and we're going to start off with good news for North Omaha. And what is that? Ernie Chambers Court wins. That's the little teaser. But you need to make sure that you subscribe at the end of the program because you're going to miss out on some very exciting things that we have to talk about. Particularly, this is the politics season, and so we've done a couple of shows already that we will be publishing, and then we are going to start our live uh, broadcasting on March the 28th. And we have some things coming up talking about the United States congressional district seat. We're trying to get in touch with Mr. Osborne, who is running against Deb Fisher, to see if he'll be on our show so we can have some really exciting conversations beginning, like I say, March 28th. Other things that we're going to talk about is my series that I'm going to have on the hypocrisy of the Omaha Land Bank. Things you'll enjoy that one. We also want to talk about city council. And we're going to bring forth to you some of the items that's going to be on the agenda on the coming week. But as I said, tonight we want to talk about the good news for North Omaha. And let's see where we got our good news. We can get everything on. All righty. Here we on a roll. Let's do it. Good news for North Omaha. And it is good news because a timeless historical structure and its naming will remain the same. So what is that? Okay. Ernie Chambers Court remains. Many of you might not know that the Ernie Chamber Courts has been sold. There's that great building. Has been sold by Omaha Housing Authority, and it's been sold to, I think, a fantastic company. I had the pleasure of speaking with it's a family-owned business, and it's called the Hoppe Development in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I had the pleasure of speaking over the phone with Jake Hoppe, who is the son of Hoppe Development's CEO. And this structure, which most all of us know, we don't even say Ernie Chambers Courts anymore. We just say Chamber Courts because that's what it's about. But there's a history behind this establishment. And so I love history. So this was a really fun research project that I did on this. And so with that, let's move it because here's the Ernie Chambers Court. And the new development, the new owners is Hoppe Development out of Lincoln, as I said. And this is what I was able to find out about them. They are an integrated real estate development company focusing on offering comprehensive solutions to meet the affordable housing needs of the communities we serve. We work throughout the Midwest with capabilities in land acquisition and master planning, entitlement, land use, project planning and financing, construction, execution, and long-term management and compliance. And I'm always real suspect of companies, particularly like, if you say, oh, they're out of town. But I came away with a great feeling on this particular company. And what I liked about the structure, because this structure has a very interesting history from the day it was constructed and when it was renamed. Originally, it was called the Strehlow Terrace. And after rounds of political discourse, it became Chambers Courts. So here's some information, long time history on it. It was constructed between 1905 and 1916. The buildings were owned and erected by the Omaha master builder, Robert C. Strehlow. The 6 buildings comprised of a complex were designed in the Prairie School style, and it includes the Majestic, the Strehlow, and the Roland. Those were built in 1905, 1907, and 1909, respectively. Um, so it was unique building at that particular time. Robert Strehlow was the Omaha base builder. He was renowned during the Omaha's 1898 Trans-Mississippi Exposition and the Panama Pacific exhibit in San Francisco in 1915. Here's another I found. The Strehlow Court fountain is right in here. This was so unique back then. It was removed at some point in time and it's never been found. Since then, it no longer, and it became, this is where you'll see when you enter, you'll see the Ernie Chambers Court. But I thought it was really neat to find, as you can see, some of these older pictures. I think it's great. I mean, this was fantastic. Of course, back then, didn't have Black folks living in them. Nope, nope, nope. This wasn't started until the white flight from North Omaha. So when I talked to, here's what I found out about this company that really excited, that I think it's going to be a great, and it's good news for North Omaha. When I recently talked to the new owners of Ernie Chambers Court, I was delighted to hear about their ideals. The Hoppe Development organization, they had acquired several properties from the Omaha Municipal Land Bank that were adjacent to the Chambers Courts. And here's what they are looking at: adding a community area for their residents, the new housing for seniors, handicap accessible, laundry facilities, and so forth. But you know what? Most importantly, they were looking at and talking about having community engagement. They want neighborhood feedback up front. And that's something that just does not usually happen for North Omaha housing projects. You know, developers just show up on our properties and start digging and restructuring and whatever, and they tell the community, well, here it is. We're going to have a grand opening. Come on out. We know what's best for you people. Additionally, and this is another good news for North Omaha, they want to work with OHA to offer the current residents an option to remain at the chamber courts. This is going to limit displacement because, you know, usually every time housing projects go up in North Omaha, they immediately kick out. And they usually tell, oh, you're going to be able to move into this place and you move in that, and it doesn't work out that way. So they really are wanting to make an effort to be in the community. And I think that's great. And all that I can do to help that make happen, I'm here for that. To make the deal even sweeter, good news for North Omaha. They said to me, Jake was saying, if the Chambers family was willing, they would like to keep the name Chambers Court. Fantastic. So following that discussion I had with Jake, I called Senator Chambers, because he'll always be Senator Chambers to me. You know, he's emeritus Senator Chambers, or he's just Senator Chambers. So many years, I don't know anything else. It's hard for me just to say Ernie. So I always give him that respect to Senator Chambers. And I called him and I was talking with him, and I talk with him periodically. and I advised him because he wasn't even aware that it was up for sale. But I told him that, oh, the Omaha Housing Authority has sold Chambers Court. And I asked him how he felt about it, how he felt about the buildings retaining the Chambers name, Ernie Chambers Court. And how if anybody's ever talked to Senator Chambers, other when he's not in the legislative, because he's a total different person when he's up there. But when you're talking with him one-on-one, he's got the usual, just soft, low-keyed, but direct manner. And when he was talking, about it, he said, there's a history behind that. And I'm like, yeah, Senator Chambers, I remember that history on how it became Ernie Chambers Court. But oh, and here's a few pictures of the inside of it currently. And that's probably going to change. But after he told me this, he said, in his, like I said, his usual soft voice, I have no objections to having chamber courts remain Ernie Chambers Courts. But he reminded me of how it came to be about Chambers Court. It was all about a segment of a Black community wanting to name a park after me. Nowhere else in the city would there have been so much opposition to name a little neighborhood park. And he was so right. And I remember it vividly. I pulled out an article that I was able to get from the Omaha World Herald back on September 28th, 2004. Renaming a small neighborhood park after two community leaders normally wouldn't prompt a big controversy unless one of those leaders is Senator Ernie Chambers. Neighbors of the recently renovated Benny Wirt Street Park wanted to name it after the very outspoken state senator and the late Elba Ross Jr., a former neighborhood association leader. But at least three of the city council 7 members said they would not support the new name. So the council was scheduled to consider the issue on Tuesday. Council President Jim Vogel said he and Chambers are on different pages philosophical. I want to, Jim, you are on a totally different page all the way around. Philosophical, ilosophical, any other sophical. Jim Vogel said, I can't vote for naming a park after him based upon some disrespect he demonstrated to certain groups in our society. Vogel said, it would be unusual to name a park after someone who is living. Well, I don't know about naming a park after someone is living, but I know now we have a street named after Mayor Fahey. And then, when I thought about it, when I was researching this and how he said, well, I can't name a park for someone who like this, like Senator Chambers, but we have a school named for someone who was opposed to integration. Chambers, who lives down the street from the park, said neighbors came up with the idea. He said, this is not a slam against me. He didn't think that, because that's the way Senator Chambers does. I've had far worse things said about me and about me and attempted against me than this vocal on this council. So, he's gone through a lot. He doesn't let it. He said that really all this is about, it's just an attack against a segment of a Black community. Councilman Dan Welch said he planned to vote against the name because Chambers is too controversial. Councilman Franklin Thompson said he also would vote against the name for a number of reasons, but he declined to say what those reasons were. Councilman Mark Kraft and Gary Granat said they were inclined to vote yes. And I like what Councilman Kraft said at the time. Ernie puts his heart and soul into what he does. He's done some things that's made me mad, but I'm sure I've done things that made him mad. You can't be in politics and please everybody all of the time. So true. It's just life, period. You can't do and be everything to everybody and please everybody all the time. Councilman Frank Brown spoke in favor of the proposal at an earlier meeting, said Parks Director Larry Foster. Councilman Sigerson could not be reached for comment. So, when the city began renovating the park at 18th and Wirt Street, the neighbors, people from them who lived there, suggested that the spot could use a better name than those three nearby names of Wirt, Spencer, Benny. So they came up with Chamber Ross Park, and the Parks Advisory Board signed off on the change, sent it to the council. But because of this disdain for Senator Ernie Chambers, that was not going to fly. So what happened? Mayor Fahey supported the name, but it came to a vote. And on September 28th, the city council rejected the proposal to name a Northeast City Park for State Ernie Chambers. This was in the Associated Press. Instead, the park will be named solely for the late community leader, Albert Ross Jr. The council voted 4-3 Tuesday to name the renovated park Ross Park, amending a proposal brought by the neighborhood associations to name it Chambers Ross Park. Now, I just want to point this out again. Okay. City Council originally said we won't do it with Ernie Chambers' name. So the neighborhood, oops, I went too fast. The neighborhood came back. The neighborhood came back, the neighborhood association, the people who lived in the area came back and said, well, let's make it Chambers Ross Park. Now, Gladys Vincent, who at that time was the vice president of the neighborhood association, suggested Chambers Ross. Although with disappointment, she said, if a neighborhood association doesn't have the authority to name a park in their own, what authority do we have? The vote followed what had already been dubbed a controversial proposal. Again, Council President Jim Vocal and the Stooges said before Tuesday meeting that he would not vote to name the park for Chambers. I am white, Republican, and Catholic, Vocal said. These are three groups he hates. Vocal said while speaking to the Omaha World Herald, I can't support naming a park after him. He couldn't have supported naming him anything. Now, I'm not going to say that I don't know where he heard that he hates. Hates is a strong word. I've never heard Senator Chambers say hate. He has said some comments because that's the way he is. You know, that was Senator Chambers. He said what he thought what he said, and that was it. But to say that he hated white people, Republicans, and Catholics, I don't know. I just can say I never heard him say that. First elected in 1970, Chambers was the longest serving member of the Nebraska legislature. He is most known, powerful in part because of his knowledge of the legislature's rules and his willingness to use them. Chambers often blocks proposals he does not like, forcing a compromise. Now, you all know people in power do not like to be told and forced to follow the rules. They make the rules, they break the rules. Among other things, Chambers has criticized the state tax breaks for large companies such as Union Pacific, ConAgra Foods, and had called Catholics criminals. Now, calling someone a criminal is not the same as saying hate. Most people, they were all for this. However, after the meeting, the daughter of Ross, Sharon Hawkins, the name Chambers invoked so much anger and so much controversy, it didn't have a place here. I would kind of dispute that, because you know what? Some anger is good because anger makes things happen. Controversy sometimes can be good. And this is just her interpretation or her thoughts of Senator Chambers, because I would say that many people would say that same Senator Chambers is a good person and has done many good things. And when they need someone to be that, evoke that anger and create that controversy, who do you think they run to? Yep. Ross, her father, worked at a South Omaha meat packing plant for years and helped his wife to begin a daycare center, which is right on the corner. I think it's Spencer Street, 19th. Ross, before his death, was a trustee at Salem Baptist Church. And he was a good person. His wife was a good person. His wife is one of the individuals that I began to emulate when I would go to church, because she wore hats and I became a hat lady too. I love my hats. And so I would have nothing bad to say about the Rosses at all. But I goes back to, you know, it's what the neighborhood wanted. It's the people wanted. And getting back to what Senator Chambers, when he said it, um, you know, all this was to keep a certain community from having something named after some people felt that Chambers was controversial. But that's his job. That was his job. So Chambers said Tuesday before the vote that the concern over naming a park of him was silly, because he considered it's a park that white people ain't gonna come ever be in anyway. It's just a little park, doesn't even take up the whole block. Anyway, that vote was made. However, Omaha mayor, this was taken from the Associated Press, October 1st, 2004. Omaha Mayor Mike Fahey plans to veto the renaming of the city park so that a neighborhood association can try again to name it after state Ernie Chambers. His spokesperson said, the Omaha City Council rejected the proposal to name it Chambers Ross Park in honor of Chambers and the late community leader Ross Jr. And however, they did vote 4-3 Tuesday to amend the proposal and name it after Ross only. So Omaha Mayor Fahey at that time said no. The mayor believes that naming the park after only Ross is not what the will of the neighborhood, Landell said. The council members who voted against naming the park after Chambers again cited the senator's outspokenness and pointed to some of the harsh comments he had made over the years that offended women, Catholics, Jews, police officers, and other groups. So I would say to them, you never said anything about those groups. You never said anything negative. You never made harsh comments. But because Senator Chambers is outspoken and he doesn't hide it, so you don't want the will of that neighborhood. You want to be what you want it to be, which is what usually happens in North Omaha. Mayor Fahey supports the renaming as representing the wishes of the residents in the area. his spokesperson Tess Fogarty. This is largely driven by the neighbors, Fogarty said. Mr. Ross, who was known as a trustee of this church, who was known to be a good citizen and taking charge and help the people, was one thing, but that's not what the neighborhood wanted. Children filled the park on Monday evening. A few boys tossed around a soft football. This is the comments from the Omaha World Herald interviewer, Aaron Grace. A few boys tossed around a soft football while girls hung out on the plastic platforms. And they all agree, all the kids agree. It's, this new slides and all that, that was okay. It was much better than the old one. But they were very ambivalent about the name. Several liked the ring of their neighborhood streets, Benny, Wirt, and Spencer. But guess what? None of them could remember Ross. Although the daycare is still running at the same Spencer Street house where he and his wife had set it up, they couldn't remember it because it didn't stand out to them. And at this little park, I mean, it's not far from my home. You don't have a lot of space. It's mainly for the children to play in. You got a little table where people can sit around, maybe chit chat and that. But it's a park that the neighborhood wanted. So he said the kids, but they could all identify with Senator Chambers, who lives at 19th and Benny Street. Senator Chambers, oh yeah, he lives down my street, said Danny Wilson. And guess what? He always says hi to us. Even the children recognize the importance of allowing this to be named after Senator Chambers. But you had those who had the power to decline what a neighborhood wanted. And as you know, there were some other comments in Aaron's that I didn't put up here, but at the time of this, James Brewer was the president of the Benny Wirt Spencer Florence Mill Neighborhood Association that had tried to rename the park for Chambers. And because he said he would be happy to hear that the state senator's name will be on a North Omaha landmark. Senator Chambers, according to Mr. Brewer, is deserving. There should be more than this. There should be several other buildings, not just in the city, but in the state, named after him. Although Brewer said his neighborhood hasn't thrown in the towel, we have an election coming up, he said in reference to city council elections in May, and our effort has not died. A resolution was drafted to change the Chambers, to recognize Chambers' tenure in the legislature and his advocacy. So I and Senator Chambers, we finished our conversation. I said, right, I remember Senator Chambers. You are so right about the opposition that took place back in 2004 over a little park. Because I remember being one of those citizens in line, standing and speaking in support of renaming the neighborhood park. I remember there were more than like 50 people plus, but we were standing and talking, and some people were pleading, and I can remember I said, I'm not going to ask you to name it. I'm going to ask you to do the right thing. But we knew that we were standing and speaking to deaf ears, all because a Black man stood up and spoke and did his job the way he was supposed to do the job. He learned the rules, he played the rules, and he believed in no one was above the law. I told Senator Chambers, we all knew when we were standing in line to speak what the answer was going to be. But what was so momentous to me, we all stood together, and we spoke, and we stood firm and strong. So we did our job. But there is a savior, because Aaron Grace wrote December 15th, 2004. It looks as though Ernie Chambers' name will grace a public space in North Omaha after all. The Omaha Housing Authority on Thursday plans to rename the historic Strehlow Terrace complex, located at 2024 and 2107 North 16th Street, after the veteran state senator. It will mark the second effort this year to name something in North Omaha after Chambers, who is serving his 34 years in the Nebraska legislature. I know this is a little off, but do you know why we have term limits in Nebraska in the legislature? All because of one man named Senator Ernie Chambers. A previous naming proposal failed, but this one is expected to be approved because it's the OHA board, not the city council, who has the final say. Although the council twice refused the neighborhood group's request to name its tiny park for Senator Chambers, there is hope. Because make sure you can get it up here. In 2004, Councilman Frank Brown, who passed away in 2019, was the city council representative for the neighborhood association. He supported the desires of the Bennywort Spencer Florence Mills Neighborhood Association. And Brown, at that time, was the chairman of the Omaha Housing Authority Board. He led the charge to name the Strehlow Terrace the Chambers Court. Actually, it was the Ernie Chambers Court, but everybody shortened it up to Chambers Court. Under an OHA board resolution, the property, which was at that time on the National Register of Historic Places, and it still is, they passed a resolution. The Strehlow Terrace would be called the Ernie Chambers Court. And there it is. And that's what it stands as today, the Ernie Chambers Court. It remains good news for North Omaha. So thank you for joining in with us tonight, and I hope you enjoyed the show. As I said, if you like the show, hit the like button and subscribe. You know, we're working on getting our subscriptions all the way up to 100. We need your sign up, and look forward to Friday's show, City Council agenda items, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday with our good news special. Have a great evening, and thanks for tuning in with Conversations with Cheryl Weston.